Reading of the book by Butterworth. The Universe is Calling. I should have worked on bringing that up while we were waiting. Now it's still trying to open up. Okay. I think we were ready for chapter. Are we ready for chapter 3?
No, I think 4. I think karma is
4.
completed.
Okay. For some reason, it's not there anymore. Wait a minute, what? Oh, dear. 4, it just goes to chapter 3. Sure, what's going on? There we go. All right. Ready to share. Okay, Universe is Calling, Chapter 4, Concerning Grace. Few words in Christian theology are used more or understood less than the word grace. Often heard are such phrases as God's grace and the grace of our Lord Jesus Christ. What does the word mean? How does it work in our lives? In theology, the word is surrounded by an air of mystery. Actually, it is a very simple explanation of the natural flow of the creative process in the individual. The word grace means favor. Why are you favored as a child of God? Simply because you are the activity of God expressing Himself as you. Why is your hand favored as a part of your body? Because it is your body at the point of your hand, designed to enable the body to carry out its objectives. Thus, the hand has not only strength, but also feeling and tenderness. Well, now that's a pretty simple explanation, or at least in my mind it is, of grace. There's so many people somehow they took grace to make it mean, I mean, it's like somehow we didn't deserve it, but we got it anyway. But my hand my hand didn't do anything to deserve it, but it doesn't mean there was no reason for it ever to not deserve it. I think the 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 thought is that somehow we offended God, but He chose to extend grace anyway. But if we are like His hand, then we never, His hand did not offend Him, so there was no reason to think that we never deserved it. God's will is another confused religious term. As long as we think of God as willfully bombarding our lives with capricious acts of limitation, there is little hope that we can grasp the science of prayer. The will of God for you is the ceaseless longing of the Creator to fulfill himself in and as that which he has created. If you miss this point, you will think of grace as a kind of favoritism that you solicit through prayer. This will or creative intention is so great that despite the power of the spoken word, you could say with feeling, I wish I were dead, and yet go right on living. God's will for you is so intense, so continuous, that it even filters through your willfully closed mind. Wow, that is so powerful. Um, the will of God for you is the ceaseless longing of the Creator to fulfill himself in and as that which he has created. So yeah, there's really nothing, no prayer will activate God's will in your life. His will in your life is always present. There's no there's never a time when it is not present. You want to go ahead and read?
Grace is not a special moment in mind or a special activity or gift of God. It is simply an we are um,
Did you see
it
it?
is simply an explanation. It is simply an explanation of the way mind works. Grace explains the inadequacy of the idea of karma, the endless cycle of cause and effect. It is true that as you sow, so shall you reap. Yet God's desire to express through you and as you is so great that you never completely reap the harvest of error, and you always reap more good than you sow. A medical researcher says that the body is biased on the side of right. This is the grace factor that is absent in the classic concept of karma. The missing link in the teachings of the East is that we are not only pilgrims on the path trying to reach something in God. We are dynamic expressions of God on the quest to know and release something in ourselves. We may limit the flow of good, but we can always know the truth and be free. You are not still
Back
there.
to this other page.
No, okay, you came
Uh,
back. Okay.
yeah. God's desire to express through you and as you is so great that you never completely reap the harvest of error, and you always reap more good than you sow. Wow, that is such a profound idea. We so my mind was uh programmed with the idea that eventually we're going to completely harvest our error. So yeah, it's God cannot. God has set it up in such a way that no one can completely destroy himself ever. Go ahead.
You are not a helpless creature bobbing about like a cork on the seas of life at the mercy of the storms of fate and circumstances. You are the very self livingness of God. When you desire spiritual growth, it is God who has first desired it in you. When you make an extra effort in your work, it is the divine urge in you that is working through you. You are not simply a subject of God, with God making notions of sin and error or of good in His big black book, you are the activity of God in expression, beloved with an everlasting love. Living in a state of grace is an expression often used to imply that the person has earned God's favor. It can be made to appear that by joining a church or accepting a particular religious pledge, you get something special. That it's like knowing someone at City Hall who arranges parking tickets. Living in a state of
Yeah,
grace can
let
mean nothing.
let's go. Let's unpack this a little bit. Living in a state of grace and expression often used to imply that the person has earned God's favor. And you know, in my experience, there are there are the church as I grew up in has its actually operates in that way. It it treats people according to um whether you earned, you know, do you have the right name, or do you have you done enough to, like, maybe you've done something that the leaders don't like, so you know you're just you can come to church, but or you need to come to church and listen to us, but you're always this person who is less than because somehow you didn't achieve uh you didn't gain our favor enough to that we can, you know, promote you into anything. And this God is just God is not like that at all. It's we are all favored. It is us who has to discover that favoritism and walk in it and believe ourselves to be worthy of it, not dependent on whether man accepts you or not, but that you know that you are already accepted and you don't need anybody's uh, acceptance of you to feel that acceptance. Oh, do you have any thoughts?
I think, yeah, basically we are expressions of God. There is no such thing called grace, I think.
Okay. You want to go ahead and read, or
Living in a state of grace can mean nothing more nor less than living in disciplined awareness of the divine flow. God's flow is constant. Our experience of it changes with our consciousness. This does not minimize the universal law of sequence and consequence. In the horizontal experience of life, we are bound to reap as we have sown, but we have a choice to introduce into a consciousness the vertical flow. Thus, on a higher level of consciousness, we are set free. We still pay the price, but on higher level, it's like turning on a light. Darkness is no longer a factor. The law of consciousness is inviolable. The high consciousness heals and the low consciousness weakens. However, something of the infinite is always filtering through and becoming part of your consciousness. Thus, the most sordid or limited thought is modified by God's love in you. Grace is like living in a house with every door and window tightly closed. Invariably, there is enough air leaking in around doors and windows so that your oxygen needs are met. Grace as the divine favor, the activity of God's love is working for you constantly. It is not dependent upon any special faith or prayer on your part. Like the buoyancy of water that will keep you afloat even when you try to force yourself under. Grace fulfills divine law by sustaining you in spite of yourself.
So just read.
Yeah, I think mm, so. It's giving many examples of it. But yeah, it's like grace is like living in a house with every door and window tightly closed. Invariably, there is enough air leaching in around doors and windows so that your oxygen needs are met.
That, to me, that means that even if you close yourself off to listening to God or doing, walking in godliness, there's still that divine grace is still um it's constantly flowing, just like a light coming down, or the energy is still flowing, and all you have to and if you all you're doing is if we do thing like closing ourselves off, all we're doing is just walking in darkness, choosing to walk in darkness, and then we will reap the harvest of darkness. And all we have to do is simply change and walk in light to change our results. So the moment it's never shut off. It's the moment we decide to again walk in it, it's still right there. It's not like God is waiting for a certain time. Once you've walked away from it long enough, he's gonna cut you off from it forever.
Mm,
I can go ahead and read.
okay.
You don't have to earn grace. It is not something that comes only to the good. It comes to all alike, because all alike are expressions of God. By the grace of God, a criminal is still loved by God and can still find forgiveness and ultimate rehabilitation through a love that transcends law. Grace is simply a wonderful facet of the activity of God in you. It is not something you must work for or develop. It simply is. It is an assurance, an explanation of why things are never quite hopeless, and why we never receive the full harvest of the error we sow, and why we always receive a little more good than we earn. Certainly, we must be willing to accept responsibility for all that is manifest in our lives, but don't get bogged down in the grim and fatalistic acceptance of working out your karma. Truth can set you free, and when you hear he was healed by God's grace, remember that it is no special act of God for one person, but a specialization of the divine good pleasure that is in every person. There is an upward pull of the universe, ever seeking to lift you to the heights of your divine nature. It is as real and as inexorable as the force of gravity. The universe is calling. Are you listening? Wow, this book is has opened my eyes to so much stuff about prayer and grace that, you contrary to what I was taught about it. And so, uh, there is a lot of almost truths in what I was taught, but lacks it lacks a depth, I think is how I would describe it. It lacks the depth of what God really is, who God really is, and who we are, because it wants to put God outside of us, and we are just these lowly creatures that uh, God had to force himself to love us because he didn't want to see us to be destroyed. But God does God never God doesn't have to force himself to do anything. And God has never stopped loving us just because we mess things up. As a matter of fact, many times I think if we would never mess anything up, we would never experience anything. So adversity actually brings growth to our life. And once we understand this principle, life becomes a joy because it's no longer we are no longer striving against something that has more power than we do. Like Satan, we tend to think that Satan is more powerful than we are. But Satan is simply in to me is simply a creation of our own mind. The thoughts, the negative thoughts we think are the are what that's those could be called demons is all our negative thoughts. So
Yeah.
so yeah, it's the what all we have to do is use our uh creative mind, and we can overcome any obstacles that might come in our way to that which we want to achieve.
Mm.
Do you have any more thoughts before we end?
No, I'm good. I think it's
Okay.
basically it's very profound the way he's teaching us. It's basically in one word answer, he says we are the expressions of God. We have everything what we need. We just have to do our part.
Mm, yeah, yeah, yeah. Everything is here. He's given us
Mm.
everything, and it's up to us to. And I think that's part of the joy of the journey is the discovery of our power, of what we can create. Is he doesn't show it. He doesn't necessarily show it to us. Everything. It's for us to discover, and that's part of the. To me, that's part of the joy of the journey is the discovery part of it. What can I do? What is possible despite my what looks like impossible to me is what can I do to change that situation and make it possible? All right. We will do this again hopefully next Monday morning. And if it works, I don't know where I'll be, but we will see. So
Yeah,
thank you,
no problem.
Esparza.
Thank you very
Bye.
much, Dhiray. Thank you. Bye.